Hello there, welcome back to the Maximum Weight Challenge. We're finally getting started on the big regulation season. We finished our 2025 season of research and we ended second, basically with a little bit more than half the points of Red Bull, but still ways to go to catch up to them. We did beat Ferrari, we did beat Mercedes. Potentially here we could maybe have, gone for a title charge if things would allow that, but I decided to play it safe. This is probably one of the harder challenges that I've done in this game, I'll be honest. So yeah, we have finished the season. We got about 50% done. Basically, the research we did equated to 50% of the loss. So hopefully we'll still have a strong car next year. What are set as new targets? We want to be third in drivers, second in the constructors. Interesting. Oh, sorry, that's what we did. They want us to do second again, but our long-term objective is, of course, to win. So we'll accept that. A little bit of a error on my part there. But yeah, new season, sponsor obligations. Looking forward to the new sponsor system. I'll be perfectly honest, as mentioned before, this one is very, very limiting. And we'll just get this set up as soon as possible. We'll just kind of minimize everything because, let's be honest, we don't really want to have any extra negatives if we can avoid them, like driver appearances, factory events. All these are not good. Yeah, money-wise, we're not really struggling. We have 68 million in the bank, so honestly, merchandise is really the only thing I would like to do if we could. And the technical, we went over this yesterday, but as you can see, we did about 50% on the suspension. Same for the underfloor, a little bit above that, let's be honest, still decent. Same here for the side pods. We are losing some things like the airflow sensitivity. That's just how things are going to have to be, unfortunately. But for the cornering part, we have at least done 50% for most of these parts. Same with the cooling. So I think that would be acceptable enough that we'll still have a fairly powerful car this year. We are going to probably have very bad airflow sensitivity. We're probably going to have very bad cooling as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what the numbers are going to be looking like. Financially, there's no real changes here. The cost cap goes up by 5 million. Sporting-wise, we have no changes. So let's just get into it with our forced engine. Honestly, the Renault engine is probably making this challenge a little bit harder, honestly. But that is just fine. 50 days until Bahrain, which means we have less time than usual, you could say. If we take a look at the internal car report compared to last year, we are losing quite a bit of top speed here. We've lost 4 kph. We've lost 13% DRS. We've lost over 100 points for low speed, medium speed, high speed. Dirty air tolerance, the entire shebang. This is not looking too good, but drivers have developed nicely. We should be compatible. We should be competitive with them. Our safety time is limited this year because of the fact that we finished second, which is kind of a negative, honestly. But we'll be able to deal with that. Our pit crew performance has degraded. No, have they degraded? Let's take a quick look here at their current stats. So yeah, they degraded somewhat. We were about 8% on the chance of mistake. We were about 2.5 seconds on the pit stop time, and we were about 60% on car building. So we degraded a little bit here, but honestly, nothing too major. And I'm just gonna get this set up real quick. So here we are with pit crew training for this month, and as you can see, the mistake goes back down to 8.5%. We get the pit stop time down to 2.5 seconds. Still lacking a little bit here, honestly, in both of these, and we also get the car building a little bit up. But by the time we get to Bahrain here, we should actually be back to 8% and 2.5 seconds, no problem. And probably we're going to be focusing a lower percentage of mistake here rather than the pit stop times this year, as the other teams are already far behind us, and just having clean pit stops is going to be probably enough for us to get most of the goals that we kind of have done. Now, the car analysis here we do want to take a quick look at, and we are first in everything but dirty air tolerance and acceleration, which means that our research has been fairly amazing. And if we compare ourselves to Red Bull, already we have a huge advantage. As you can see, we have over 100 points of low speed, medium speed, and almost 200 points of high speed. So cornering, we already hold a huge advantage, and this is kind of one of the problems that the AI has with research season. They just don't invest enough time into it. Let's face it, this is a base car, and it already has 2 kph, it already has a ton of cornering, and we already have a bunch of cooling as well. So honestly, the fun thing probably would have been to go for the championship last year, which I might still do just to see if it's possible, but it would require a near perfect season. Any RNG would would throw it in the bin, so to speak. Now, we are going to get developing here, and we're going to start off with the underfloor, of course. We are going to be investing, I think, CFD time into this. It's still just the jack of all trades. And while it is fairly good, honestly, there's 60% here. This translates to about 71, 72% for both of these, 60% for the high speed. I still think investing into the underfloor here is going to be the correct choice. We're going to sacrifice airflow. We're going to go, maximum weight, maximize the 3 others. And as you can see, we're still going to be losing some stats, but we're going to be getting a bunch of top speed. The main concern that I do have is the dirty air tolerance. Once it gets below 40%, you are going to struggle a little bit, but it looks like our car is going to be fast enough that as long as we just focus on getting more speed into it, it's not really going to be a huge deal. So that's kind of what I'm banking on. Let us go ahead here and get that underfloor manufactured, or designed rather. And we'll follow up with the chassis. And here too, we're going to go with probably something like this. It's going to lose us out 8% of the engine cooling, which could be fairly bad, don't get me wrong. But what I think we do here is that we maybe sacrifice some performance from our side pods to get that cooling back, because cooling is more efficient on the side pods anyways. And as mentioned here, we're going to be making a lot of chassis this year just to bring these stats up. 47% drag reduction, 50% cooling, airflow middle being close to 60%. We have a lot of work that we can do on this chassis in order to, by the half point of the season, make it fairly decent. So we're just going to go ahead and rush this one, get it done as quickly as we can. We do have more engineers available to us, so I'm a little bit unsure where we want to place them. But it's going to make getting a car ready for the first race, that is, 40 kilos, a lot easier. Next up, side pods. We did lose, as mentioned, 8% by what we did with the other one. So we kind of need to get it back here. And we can get back 4%. We're still going to lose a lot of low-speed cornering, which is, again, one of the concerns. And honestly, this one too does need some development, particularly in the drag reduction and airflow side. So we're going to be designing a lot of side pods as well. But yeah, the losses here are concerning. But on the other hand, I think the car is strong enough right now that it's not going to be a huge deal. And if we sacrifice cooling, we'd lose another 5%, bringing us down to 45. We'd have to buy so many new components that it might not be worth it. We might end up, basically what I'm thinking here is that we run this at the start of the season, and if we see that the other teams are catching up to us or giving us a fight, we'll make a new one where we minimize cooling, and we'll just invest in new components instead. Because as you can see, just doing this with cooling is gonna give us a little bit more cooling, a little bit more cornering, but also a lot of top speed. There's the difference between 22 and half a kph. So we'll do this to start off with, and maybe make some changes later on. I think that is a acceptable compromise, if you will. Next up, suspension, and let's see here what we can do. 46. So drag reduction is low, but that's fine. We're going to sacrifice top speed on the suspension in order to get a little bit extra out of it in terms of the low speed cornering that we're losing a lot of. We're going to lose some high speed cornering. Brake cooling is actually fairly high at 69%, but I think we're going to be sacrificing brake cooling on the front wing rather than suspension. So we'll do this. High speed is sad, but I think this is an acceptable compromise, if you will. Now, if we rush here, we can get everything done in about 20 days. Speed up the underflow a little bit. And this should be good enough here that we actually get the last two components going too. So for now, we're just going to design these real quick, and then we'll get started on the rear wing and the front wing. We've also gotten the team roster updates here for the 26th season, as well as the fact that our weather center now has reached level 5, so we'll have perfect forecast accuracy. But we'll take a look at the roster. So we're still fighting Verstappen and Leclerc. Bottas has now gone to Ferrari. This is an interesting lineup. Almost more interesting than the Hamilton one. Russell and Sainz at Mercedes, Giovinazzi and Piastri and Alfa Romeo, Stroll and Ocon at Aston, Magnussen, Tsunoda, Williams, Shaw and Albon at McLaren, Shaw and Schumacher at Haas, and Drogovic and Ricciardo at Alpha Tauri. So honestly, just looking at the driver pairings here, these two teams should not be a concern. Neither should Alfa Romeo. I'm kind of curious about how Ferrari, how Mercedes, Aston, and Red Bull is going to score up against each other. And, well, basically once we get to that first race, because so far, I think we are probably still going to hold a pretty significant advantage. First couple of designs here are now being completed, with the underfloor being the first, and we're of course going to just get started on the second one. We did lose a little bit of the stats here, and airflow sensitivity, as you can see on this piece, is down to 26%. So yeah, that is that is a terrible number, but it is worth it in the in my perspective. The way that I probably have said this before, but the way that I look at dirty air tolerance in particular is that dirty air tolerance is nice to have, but if you focus on dirty air tolerance rather than, say, cornering it and top speed, the difference is that you'll have an easier fight fighting for 9th and 10th, while focusing on cornering and top speed, you'll struggle to, you know, overtake 6th or 7th, but you'll still have a car that is generally performing better. You'll be absolute shit in the rain, however, but it's a trade-off that I'm willing to take for, you know, fighting a couple of places above my position in dry races, rather than, you know, just equally getting a couple of points. That's the way that I look at it. It might be wrong, but it's just how things be. So this underfloor here after safety is actually pretty decent, so we're going to go ahead and get that done. We need it done in 31 days, and also, you know, we need to have time to actually make these. So I think we get it done in 21, and then we rush 2 of them for manufacturing. That should be fine. Let's get that design started, and also here we should now have the designs complete for the chassis, which we are going to just manufacture immediately. Get 2 of those made. Should probably also go ahead here and get the factory refurbished. Side pods are also done. Let's go ahead and get those made. It'll take 16 days. And lastly, we should have the suspension, which we'll also go ahead and manufacture immediately. But yeah, as I mentioned here, we probably do want to get our factory refurbished. I think it's starting to fall apart a little bit. Yeah, it's down to a 2-dropper here. Could potentially also just upgrade it, but 4 projects is usually more than enough. So we're just going to go ahead here and get that refurbished done. Alright, these 3 designs are done. Next up, we have the front and rear wings. We're going to get those done immediately. And as I mentioned, we did sacrifice, or rather, we're going to be sacrificing brake cooling here. So let's just tune that down. Airflow sensitivity, of course. Airflow front and medium and low speed cornering is what we're looking for. And we are losing a lot of dirty air tolerance here. Honestly, we might need to reconsider our stance on dirty air tolerance, because having 40 is acceptable, but getting far below that could be dangerous, even if we do have a car that is significantly faster than our opponents. But let's see how it stacks up once we made these parts. We might need to make some revisions, honestly. Rush it, put 4 engineers on that. Should be enough that we get it done and get 2 of them made as before secure. So that is fine. Let's go ahead and here and have a look at the rear wing. Here too, we are going to be sacrificing the airflow sensitivity, and that could backfire, as I mentioned a little bit, tremendously here. And because of that, I think we need to just go for top speed and getting that DRS effectiveness up. To be fair, DRS effectiveness, if we're running front, isn't super important. So having it at 73% might be the play here, just so we don't lose too much of the other stats. We're still going to get a ton of top speed. But as I mentioned here, the dirty air tolerance is starting to look a little bit concerning. But I think we go for the classic here, and then, as I said, we can reevaluate later on, because we do actually have a car here that is good enough that we don't need to get it right on the first try. Next up, as I said, we are going to be making a lot of chassis for the purpose of bringing up both drag reduction and engine cooling, so we'll be doing something like this. Again, this is a development chassis. The entire goal is just to increase drag reduction and engine cooling's expertise level so we can make better parts later on. So we'll probably be making 3, 4, maybe more of these. We'll have to see. We could go ahead and do it in 10s to get a little bit of extra boost. It is going to be extremely costly though, and we don't really need to do that. And as mentioned, if we need extra parts later on because of our low engine cooling, we'd rather play it safe and just do normal designs instead. The intense design, just in case you're unaware, is 1.5 times expertise gain for 3 times the cost, so it's not really cost effective. But yeah, that should be all parts ready. We're gonna get them manufactured, then we'll get ready for secure. So here we are with the pit crew training for February, which as mentioned brings us very close to our last year's stats. Less than 8% chance of mistake, 2.53 seconds for pit stops, and we're also getting car building a little bit up there as well. So honestly, it's looking very good here. The wheel gun is still nearly max, so we need to put in a little bit of effort elsewhere. But this should be good enough, honestly, for most of the season. We have an incredibly good starting point, particularly if you compare it to other teams. We also had a couple of other things happen while we waited for the month to tick over. We had a random event here with the underfloor. We could unfortunately, we could fortunately pay overtime to get it done at the normal expected time, 10th of February rather than 23rd. So we're going to get that done in time for the race. The Science Center now is also tier 5, so that should help out a ton. Well, not really a ton. Help out a little bit by giving us a little bit of extra performance. We'll have to see if that is worth it. And Norris here has increased his defending slightly. But with that said, I'm going to get the components ready, and then we'll go to Sakia. So our development chassis is complete, but more importantly, we have now reached the Bahrain GP. And as you can see, we are finishing quite a lot of, well, manufacturing items here. Now, I want to quickly here put the car together, and what we're actually going to do here is just install on car 1, because I want to show the difference between car 1 and car 2, and then we'll use that to kind of establish where we're at. So that should be all components, I believe, on car 1, and I actually missed out on the rear wing. Let's get that sorted, just had to make sure, and that is all C2 or, you know, 2nd or 3rd edition. With that, we can go to car analysis here, and we want to compare to ourselves first and foremost. If we take a look at Alpine, don't know why it was a struggle to find that. And as you can see here now, we have car 1 with all the new components, and car 2 with the stock parts, if you will. So the DRS effectiveness at 84% might be a little bit overkill, as I mentioned, so we're probably going to make a new rear wing. And our dirty air tolerance is down to 31.77%. That is basically Alfa Romeo first season levels of bad dirty air tolerance. It's actually worse than that. So this is something that we do need to rectify a little bit. Because again, this low, it is a problem. I'd say 40% is minimum what you should be aiming for. 50% is good. So we definitely need to fix this. We have lost a little bit of our cornering performance. That shouldn't be too, you know, surprising. Medium speed actually lost barely anything. We've lost about 0.012 Gs for low speed, and we lost a little bit more for high speed, but this should still be very, very good. Cooling, 56%, 70% for the brakes. Can probably bring this down to 60, get a little bit more performance out of it. Maybe sacrifice some brake cooling for that little bit dirty air tolerance, which means that we're going to probably do a little bit of switching around here on the front wing and the rear wing to make the car a little bit more balanced, if you will. Now, with that said, we do, of course, need to compare ourselves to the other ones. We are first in cornering. It's just that we have everything in one car. And it's still a very, very strong car at this point. 40 or so low speed advantage. Same here for the medium. For the high speed, it's still slight advantage. Dirty air tolerance, we are lacking, but we have almost 4 kph on the Red Bull. And as you can see, they've already shed 10 kilos, so there's not too much performance they can extract, just purely due to the weight. But that's still going to be a little bit of a competitive car. And even the Ferrari here, 39.7% dirty air tolerance. But it looks like they don't really have any upgrades yet. Everything is 20 kilograms. They are really far behind, honestly. So we'll have to see what they do. And Mercedes, how are they looking? Kind of the same as the Ferrari. They're going to be a little bit stronger, but they have gotten some new parts here. And Aston, that scored some surprising wins last year, basically looks the same. So we'll have to see exactly how this develops over the next 3-4 races, but the car looks decent enough at this stage. We should be able to win, hopefully, some early 1-2s in order to make our, you know, our journey a little bit easier. But we're definitely going to take a look at the front wing and the rear wing and probably make a little bit more of a balanced car. Probably giving up a little bit of the damn, I'm stuck. Giving up a little bit of the cornering in order to get better. Sorry. Giving up a little bit of the brake cooling on the front wing. I don't know where I'm going with this, sorry. I'm a little bit lost. But giving up some brake cooling and getting a little bit of that airflow sensitivity back as a result could be the way to go here. Because it is incredibly low, and doing this, as you can see, we'd lose a slight amount of low speed, medium speed, and high speed cornering. But in exchange, we get 6% of that dirty air tolerance back. And we could honestly do this. Barely lose anything. We keep the brake cooling where it is, which is not really what I was hoping for. But the problem is we do lose some cornering if we want to go for this. But honestly, just making this alone would kind of solve our issues with dirty air tolerance. So let's make this addition too. Just going to double check it that I did go maximum weight. I did. This is probably the only thing I've ever made with a maxed air tolerance slider, which is kind of funny. But yeah, we'll just make it 45 days. We should be able to survive until then, no problem. And the other thing that I did want to take a look at here is the rear wing. Can we do anything with, say, the DRS delta to make the airflow sensitivity just a slight amount better there? And as you can see, we can sacrifice about 11.3 DRS effectiveness. To be fair, as I mentioned, the DRS effectiveness that we have right now is kind of overkill, honestly. So I think doing this where we get dirty air tolerance back, we get a little bit of extra cornering, a little bit extra top speed, might generally be worth it here. So we're going to go ahead and make this as well. And we are going to keep on doing what we were doing with the chassis, where we are kind of developing a little bit of the drag reduction, engine cooling, get both of those up a little bit. And yeah, basically just still do 2 or 3 more chassis. We are doing the same with the side pods. And probably a little bit after Baku, we'll maybe make a upgrade. For now though, Bahrain is around the corner. I do believe that we will be able to do a, you know, 5 streak, both cars in top 6 does sound doable. Fastest lap should be doable. At least 1 car on the podium. So yeah, it's looking good. Let's see if we can get a good result in our first race of the season. So we're having a interesting quali here. Honestly, Norris had a pretty bad start to his lap. Gasly had a decent one. But the Red Bulls are kind of following us here. They're just a tenth behind Gasly. And 129.9 is basically what both cars have been doing. Just Norris here with a bit of a, you know, poorer performance. We'll have to see if he can actually improve. He can't. Well, he actually improved by 1,000. But the Red Bulls are still kind of keeping up with us, but they're the only ones. As you can see, there's a second down to Russell and Sainz, and both Alfa Romeos, of all things, made it into Q3. Bottas the only Ferrari, and Ocon is still clinging on to hope. But the Red Bulls are still competitive, so it's probably not going to be a full walk in the park, but I still think that we will have a decent enough chance here. So let's see what we can do for the race itself. Now, for the past season or so, I've been simming most qualies because, well, we've been trying to speed things along. But this year, we probably are going to be doing a lot more qualies manually, purely due to the fact that doing quali manually allows me to, well, get a multitude of fresh soft tires available for the race. And in places like Bahrain, that's actually just going to be straight up a game changer because, let's face it, soft tires around this place are insane in the manner that they are actually faster when you run them light than if you run standard. As you can see here, we gain a second, but the difference in tire wear is insane. And honestly, if we didn't have to go to the medium tire here, we wouldn't. We would just do we'd just do 2 soft stints. But yeah, this is basically what we're going to do with both cars. It should be fine. We'll have to see if the Red Bulls can give us a fight. They might very well do that. But I think the superior tire that we have is going to be kind of the deciding factor. And if we do get stuck behind the Red Bulls early on, that could be fairly negative. But we'll see what we can do here. If we can turn it, if we can, you know, take advantage and not get hampered by our low dirty air tolerance. So we're getting closer to the first pit stop, and we did have a fairly good we've had a fairly good start here, honestly. We've been able to pull slightly away from the Red Bulls, but they're still a bit of a threat. But then again, we've taken far more care of our tires than they have. They'll be pitting before us. And as you can see here right now, we are just going to be pushing these soft tires until they are broken. Then we're going to get the pit stops going. So honestly here, we have a pretty sizable advantage already. And as we run in clean air, I don't think we're going to have any problems. Leclerc was able to kind of slow us down there for a few laps in the beginning. But then we broke free and just the tire advantage kind of kept us outside of the RS range. So it's looking very, very good so far. Let's see if we can keep it going. And we've had a lucky break here somewhat. We have a virtual safety car. And the question now is, do we double stack? The cars are a little bit too close to each other. It's Perez and the Alfa Romeo. I can't really make out the number in front, but I would assume it's Bottas. Sorry, not Bottas. Who's driving the Alfa Romeo this year? It's Giovinazzi. So Piastri and Perez crashed, actually. So Giovinazzi is the other driver. Bit unfortunate. Let's be honest, Bottas actually lost with the Ferrari. But yeah, the question now is, do we do a double pit stop? Honestly, the virtual safety car could last more than just, you know, the one lap. We save about 4 seconds pitting under it, so I think what we're going to do here is allow Gasly to take advantage. Norris is just a little bit too, you know, they're a little bit too close to each other. Norris has better tires anyways, so we'll hopefully see here if this lasts for... if it lasts for this full lap, Norris is going to take advantage. Honestly, we're going to pit anyways. It's not really a big surprise. But as you can see, we have about 13 seconds down to Leclerc after this first stop. And Norris actually just barely was able to take advantage of the virtual safety car. It ended in the middle of the straight though for Gasly, which is bad news. That's going to allow Leclerc to close down massively there because he can get on the power by the corner. And we lost about 3 seconds due to it, but it is what it is. Norris and Gasly here are far enough ahead, I think, that it won't be a problem. Unless, of course, we do a little bit of a spin to win move. But even then, we'll be fine. Confidence is going to be a little bit of concern, but what I've seen so far, we're very strong right now. The question is, are we still going to be strong after Baku when most AI teams get most of their upgrades? We are getting started on the final lap here at Bahrain, and honestly, it's been pretty smooth sailing. First and second is what we're running. Verstappen is a good 17 seconds off the lead, Leclerc half a minute. But the Red Bulls are not as far back as I'd like. To be fair though, we haven't given it our all. We still have kind of fuel and also tire left, but I've been playing kind of safe here. We haven't really had a need to push. So I haven't taken the risk to push. But we did lap up to 7th place here. Sainz is basically on the word, or at least was on the verge of getting lapped as well. But Red Bulls are currently looking like the concern here. Mercedes might become one, but so far it is looking very, very good. We'll have to just see how good the development of the AI is going into, you know, Australia, and more importantly Baku. That is basically where we're going to get a little bit of a you know, a little bit better understanding of how far ahead we are currently. But so far it is looking very good. As you can see, our fastest lap attempts were a couple of seconds faster than the fastest laps of the Red Bulls, so we'll take that with us. Driver standing stand, very good here. We did also get the extra bonus point here for pole position. We still have that rule, which is why Gasly has 19 points rather than 18. And we also got points for fastest lap, so we might try also, as much as the game allows us, unless of course we have DNFs, to try and also get a perfect season with the regulation change. So let's see what we can do here. It's looking good so far. We also had the 2 fastest pit stops, which shouldn't come as a surprise. But as I mentioned here, the AI is atrocious at managing their pit crew. 2.9 seconds was the fastest stop they had. And, well, we're down to 2.47. So we'll have to see. But hopefully, again, that is one of those aspects that gets a little bit better in the next, in 24. I have my hopes up. So we'll take a look at it once it gets released. But yeah, I think what we're going to do here is just keep on developing as we have. I'm going to make a couple of more of these chassis and side pods. And once the front wing and rear wing here is done, probably before Baku, we'll have to take a quick look here. Yeah, probably before we get to Baku, I would think. We're not getting them before the Australian GP, let's be honest. So we'll take a look at the rear wing and the front wing then. We also have some engineer and driver tension that has been solved between landowner and engineer after the win. Both of them happy. But yeah, I think we are looking very, very strong. We just need to keep this going. Let's get done with Saudi Arabia and Australia and hope that it's another 1-2 finish in both of those. Unfortunately, our dreams of a perfect season got shattered immediately as we end up with a 1st and 3rd place in Saudi Arabia, with the Red Bulls finishing 2nd and 4th. 5th place being 40 seconds behind. The early season seems to indicate that it's going to be a 2-team show. We'll have to see if any of the other teams can catch up. In Australia, right after our first pit stops, we have Paris involved in an incident. And while we were unable to breach DRS before the stops, we will hopefully be able to build a gap before the Red Bulls pit. And after Verstappen has pitted, he is indeed 7 seconds behind our boys, but as the Red Bulls are on a 1 stop, we do need to extend this gap further. After our 2nd and final stop, we come out just behind Verstappen, and we do have 6 seconds to gain over the last 18 laps, and with fresh tyres that should be somewhat easy. On lap 47, we do indeed catch up to Verstappen with both cars, get the overtake done. Next up is getting Norris past and building yet another gap. And by the end of the race, we have extended it to 7 seconds, and we come home in 1-2 with the fastest lap. A good performance from us. As we're moving along towards the Baku race weekend, we do continue our project with the sideboards and chassis, and get a couple more projects started to keep on improving. We also get a car development port in the switch to August, and sorry, not August, April. And as we can see, we're still first in cornering, we're still first in top speed. But this could also just be that the other cars haven't put on their parts yet. We'll have to see in 11 days once we actually go to Baku proper. Our dirty air cornering is the worst, but low speed we're actually one of the best, which is weird. And the regulation vote here has been minor technical changes, and honestly, if we get another high-speed wing change, that would be kind of funny, because high-speed did get hit the hardest last time around, so doing it again would actually be a little bit hilarious. But yeah, that is the regulation changes. We're also going to be getting a new front wing and the rear wing. Going to deny the board. I do not care for the presence at the Grand Prix. We still have some parts in low stock, which isn't that surprising, but we can honestly just go ahead here and make more, so it's not really a big deal. We have for the most part got everything sorted, but underfloors and chassis I believe are the two parts that I had not manufactured enough of, and that is honestly my own fault. We only won four front wings because we are potentially going to be slapping on the new designs here, but on the other hand, we haven't really been struggling as much as I would, expected that we would do. But I think we might do the rear wing here because, as mentioned, DRS effectiveness is fine and all, but we are kind of struggling, honestly, right now to not really get past the Red Bulls, but create enough of a gap. So we need more cornering, we need more top speed, and the DRS effectiveness here isn't actually as important as one might think for us. So we're going to sacrifice a little bit of it. It's generally not a brilliant idea, but the situation right now is that we are not fighting anyone but the Red Bulls. They are our only concern. And as such, there's no problem with, sacrificing a little bit of the stats in order to have a little bit of better performance. Now, what I think we might do here with the safety period is I was considering using it on the chassis, but honestly, I think using it on the rear wing and doing a little bit of trolling in the sense that we do this might be the play. If we do this, we could potentially get more cornering into it. We'll get more dirty air tolerance. It's a little bit of a waste of a DRS period, of a wind tunnel period, CFD. But again, right now we can experiment a little bit. If I can get dirty air tolerance back up to at least 40%, I would be very happy. So let's go ahead and do this for the rear wing. Now the front wing here coming in a couple of days is potentially not something that we're going to use because, as mentioned, we did see what we're kind of seeing that the things that we did are working out for us. So we might not need that extra dirty air tolerance right now, if you will. So with the front wings done now, let's take a look here if it is something we want to invest in. Again, this dirty air tolerance, getting it up wouldn't be a terrible idea. But I think the rear wing will do the job for now, and if we see that we are struggling, then we'll go ahead and make this one. But because we have made a, front wing design right now that has kind of given us a little bit of extra dirty air tolerance, we could potentially go ahead here and make another front wing that is more focused on other things. As you can see here, doing something like this would give us a ton more brake cooling, but even making another very basic front wing, 647, 3% then the dirty air department, which is a decent gain. We also gain 1.44 in brake cooling. And if we want to, we can actually make a pretty hilarious front wing, in my personal opinion. At 0.037 G's high-speed cornering gain, an actual high-speed cornering front wing can be made if we really, really want to. And sacrificing 6 low speed, 4 medium for that, it's kind of a tempting offer. A general rule of thumb that I employ is that low speed and medium speed, you need to kind of multiply these numbers by 2 to get the equivalent for high speed. So for low speed, this would be 12, this would be 8, we'd get 20. But if we do this, we get 37 high speed, and that is plus 30. So honestly, I think we do this, combine it with the rear wing, and that'll be a good kind of middle ground. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what the CFD periods are going to do for our car. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the side pods and chassis are going to do. Honestly, once these two projects are done in 15 days, we're going to go ahead and make probably a design that we're going to put on the car. And I'm very curious to see just how much of a boost they're going to give us. So look forward to that. With everything sorted though, we're going to go into Azerbaijan. We are going to be using the rear wings, probably. Not here though, we only have one ready, which we can put on, I guess, Gasly's car. He needs a little bit extra boost. Then again, this is actually one of the places where the DRS is incredibly powerful, so we'll just wait until next race. But honestly, DRS is kind of nice to have there too. We'll see. We'll consider it as we go. Now, in terms of the car, I do want to take a quick look here because this is basically the first like development threshold, if you will, going into the new season. And as you can see, we're first in top speed, DRS, and low speed, second in medium, and third in high speed. Means that some teams here have developed a little bit. And that some team is, unsurprisingly, Red Bull. Currently, the racing scene is a two-man show with us and Red Bull. So the fact that they've caught up to us is not really, that surprising. Now, we still have a fairly sizable top speed advantage here, almost 3 kph. We also have a fairly, not good, but acceptable low speed advantage at 0.020. And they are definitely getting away on the high speed here, so I do want to get that front wing, get a little bit more high speed into it. We might need to develop our underflow a little bit more, we'll have to see. And we're still really comparable in the medium, so our fight with Red Bull is still going strong. They don't really have too much performance to find though, I think, because they're already at 9.5 kilos. They could go down further, but we'll have to see what they end up doing. For now though, we're going to head to Baku, the first sprint weekend of the year. And hopefully, we'll have a good showing here. The Baku sprint was a full attack on softs, and that led us to an easy 1-2 finish, and while Gio had a crash, it had no effect on the result. For the race itself, by the time we got to the first pit stop, the Red Bulls were still running with us. As such, we've decided to be a bit aggressive here with a 2-stopper, and in that second stint, the Red Bulls did not have DRS and were not running with us. We were able to extend the gap to 16 seconds before a virtual safety car got called around lap 30 as Sainz spun into turn 1. We decided our gap is big enough to not pit early, and just a few laps later, Verstappen actually hits the wall, but is fine to continue. But with damage to his front wing, he's forced to take an extra pit stop to replace it. By the time we finally pitted for our final set, we had around 30 seconds on Leclerc. And just after we finish our final pit stops, Verstappen spins into turn 1, destroying his car, giving us another virtual safety car with just 5 laps remaining, and the gap to Leclerc being 24 seconds, to sail into another easy 1-2 finish. As we go into Miami, we have hit the part of the season where parts are starting to see minor damage, and as such, we'll start switching components in order to ensure as many points as possible this early in the season. By the time we get to our first pit stops, we have left Leclerc behind, but not Verstappen, as he is still with us in a car with new components after his crash, while Leclerc is running minor damage to gearbox and engine, slowing him down. By the time we get to the second pit stop, we have 11 seconds on Verstappen, and as he is on hard tyres, we should have no problems closing that gap down with soft tyres. And by the end, the pit stops we were 8 seconds behind, and with Leclerc in front of us. With 7 laps to go, we have caught up to Verstappen, and getting the overtake done is just a matter of time. By the end of the race, we get another 1-2 to add to our growing collection. So yeah, with another 1-2 here at Miami, we have had a really good start of the season here. We only lost out on 1 second place, that is about it. And as you can see in the driver championship, our boys are fairly equal. Leclerc and Verstappen isn't far behind. Let's be perfectly honest, it's been 5 races though, so we're actually really far behind. But in the constructors, we have a 100-point advantage. It is looking like we're going to have a bit of a calming season. So with that in mind, I think I might end up doing most of the remains of the season in the same manner I've done this video, where I've tried to add a little bit more information, if you will, from the races themselves, so you can actually get a better overview of how we're doing in races, what we kind of are doing, how they develop, things like that. I think the added information is just going to make it more comprehensive and easier to understand. So let me know what you think about that. Have I added too much information? Should I add a little bit more? Probably add in a little bit more cinematics. It is a little bit more editing, but honestly, it's more fun that way. And I think it makes for a better viewing experience. So I'm trying to experiment a little bit with that and we'll probably see more of that going into 24. Now, we do have a couple of chassis, and the sidepod design is actually going to be the last thing we do today, as I've run out of time, unfortunately. But we're going to have a look at these and get started on the new ones, because we have developed the chassis quite a bit. We also do have ATR, and I am tempted to use it on, say, the chassis or the sidepod here to give a little bit of extra boost. I think that could be fun. If we do use it, it's probably going to be on the chassis. Let's be honest, the chassis is the part that is lagging behind the most. But let's just try and make a chassis here with the initial stats that we put in at season start. And already, you can kind of see that this chassis has actually grown quite a bit. We gain 0.26 kph, we get a little bit of cornering here, and we also get an extra 5% of engine cooling. And this is just without any extra boost, if you will. This is just from how things are. So what I think we do is that we're actually going to invest CFD into the chassis here. It's going to basically mean that we're not going to be using this chassis. It's just no point, because we're going to have to make another one. But this one is already a fairly significant upgrade for us. So a CFD chassis should be even more of an upgrade. I'm going to be a little bit wild here, and we're going to spend 2 weeks to get it made. And then we'll have another one. So we'll actually have it done for Canada. But that should be just fine. It's kind of weird using CFD on the chassis, but it is basically the thing we focus very, very little on with the research last season, so it does deserve a little bit of love. Now, with the sidepods, we can probably also now sacrifice a little bit more of that engine cooling if we so desire to get a little bit more out of them. And we'd lose 6% engine cooling here, which is not amazing by any means of the imagination. But if you consider that we're getting minimum 5% back from the chassis, and honestly, anything around 60% is acceptable, I say making this sidepod is just dandy. We get almost half a kph, 0.43. We get a decent chunk of cornering all around. And we could also do this if we really, really need low-speed cornering, for instance. For now, though, we are fine. So I think we are going to go ahead and do it like this. That is going to be, again, a pretty sizable upgrade. And honestly, we might run an extra couple of projects on front wings and rear wing. The problem is just it takes so long. So we'll have to see once these are done in a month's time if we want to do anything with them. Now, I do kind of want to get this iPods and the chassis done around the same day. We're going to need 28 days to get the chassis done, so let's speed up the sidepod a little bit here. We're going to lose some future expertise as a result because we are spending less time on it. But honestly, that's not a big deal. I just want to have both of these upgrades come in at the same time. And we should be able to make that happen. So that should be good. But yeah, that is it. We have had a rather good start to the season. I do hope that you've enjoyed this series. Probably overthought a little bit, was too concerned and played it a little bit too safe here with the season start that we've had. But we'll have to see. If Red Bull develops well, they could come back. If we develop very well, we could just completely crush them by the end. We'll have to wait and see which scenario happens. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please like and subscribe. And I hope to see you around next time. Bye bye.